everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of TEDxMellenStreet Live. And I'm your host, Sacha Walton, and also the event curator of TEDxMellenStreet, which is going to be on November the 18th in Hampton, Virginia at the Historic American Theater. I can't wait till this date comes because we have like amazing 19 speakers on stage. And with this podcast and show, we've been highlighting our speakers. And once again, we have another one, Vanessa Hill, who's doing amazing work in our community and throughout the states. And I'm going to bring her on shortly. But before I do, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Tanya Fields, who is the founder of Connected Compass. And I want to say thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing in the STEM community for minority men and women. Thank you so much. And I'm just going to go ahead and just bring up Vanessa Hill and just say, hello, how are you today?
Hey, I am doing very well. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Oh my goodness. It's such a pleasure to have you here. It's a pleasure to even have you on our stage on November 18th coming up. So you're an upcoming TEDx speaker. So how do you feel about it?
You know, I'm really excited. This year has just been full of amazing experiences. And so what I like to say is that I just know that it was really in the atmosphere. It's in divine order. So I'm just excited at everything that is just coming our way so that I can just represent all of the communities that I represent who are often muted and especially my family. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. Awesome. You know, there is one question I ask everyone who is on this platform. And I want you to tell all the listeners, everybody's watching the world, who is Vanessa Hill?
I'm a creative, an educator, an advocate, and a healer. The way that I look at it is that those are the four legs of a stool that the Most High sits on in each space I enter. So I can't even say I'm, anything beyond that because I really have come to understand my mission. It's been a hard fought lesson to come to this point, but I'm very sure in who I am based on all of the experiences that I've had, both good and bad, but it's all been for good seasoning.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that answer. I mean, that was just like, and then you said you are a filmmaker, you're a creative and everything. So for you to even answer in that manner, I was just like, oh my gosh, listen to the creative flow just coming out of her right now. It's so wonderful. It's the uniqueness and everything. So yeah, so you are a creative. So how did you get into being a creative? And I remember, like you said, being a filmmaker. What was it that brought you to that purpose in what you're doing and with your nonprofit?
Well, again, I understand myself as just being saturated in my roots. So it didn't start with me. I'm not that brilliant. I just come from brilliant people. And so my Nana was a singer. She used to sing with her sisters called the McIntosh Sisters, all from Key West. I come from folks who are storytellers. My grandfather used to write poetry, and he also drew, so artistically, but wonderful because we have both the intellectual and the artisans, and it was like really a collective, right? I came into it just really writing. Writing was like breathing to me. That was the way that I could express myself. I remember my first letter, if you will, just not even art or poetry, but just using words. I wrote President Carter back in the day when the folks were detained, and I think in Afghanistan or something like that. And I was just like, please help them out. And I received an email. I received a letter saying, for me being so young, thank you for me continuing trying to use my voice in that way. So I think that kind of like saturated it. So I started officially writing little books. I worked in radio, had a stint at interning in record labels. And then finally, when I was at Howard Divinity School working, I got an opportunity to do some things on PBS. And then I formalized it. So I got my MFA in film from Howard. And so bringing that all together in my nonprofit, having worked on, film and student films and videos and commercials, I like to say that with public health, that turning point allowed me to really understand how to use the arts and humanize statistics. So I do that by telling stories. For Project Nana, I tell stories of my seasoned women because it's really the who they are that really makes the difference. Every data point is a human being, and their stories are so relevant and so rich. So, that is how I use the art as basically, if you will, a griot.
Wow, agree. Oh, wow. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And so you mentioned your nonprofit. It is an amazing one. And you talked about being able to highlight those who are unheard. So with Project Nana, what is the backstory with that? How did you really start to start the project, the nonprofit, and who does it serve?
Um, uh, 2 weeks after diagnosis of stage 4 endometrial cancer, my grandmother passed, and I missed her by a day. At that time, I was in Miami teaching film, working at an art and design school, and I fell apart, trying to figure out how I can miss. I mean, the guilt, anger. And so that kind of prompted me to try to figure out the why. I wanted to understand why did she have to pass? She was a breast cancer survivor. And in my Google scholarship at that point, I recognized that endometrial cancer, it has signs and symptoms. So if she's going to the doctor all the time, why isn't nobody looking at her signs and symptoms? So that allowed me to kind of really delve deeper, going into eventually getting my other master's in public health, becoming an organizer, learning in that community about true advocacy, and really being silent and listening. Going into the community, really recognizing the agency or lack thereof that our seniors had, especially when they were interacting with the medical community. I saw so many times that they would be talked over, like they would, instead of the doctors talking directly to them, they would talk to family members, or their questions just being dismissed. Mm-hmm. And so when it came down to it, I recognized also that it was mostly in the aging women population. So the nonprofit really is to, in the very true sense of the word, to show that seasoned women's health matters. That is the real macro view of it. But we're really getting down into gynecologic cancer and really looking at why women, particularly postmenopausal women, think that they can stop taking care of themselves, their womanhood, their pelvic, their basement areas when they get to a certain age or postmenopause. And I think what it is when we think of women's health, we tend to think of the maternal years, like the season of reproduction. We completely forget that it is a lifespan. And so we try to reintroduce women to their selves, their femininity, to own their space that they're in, to learn to advocate for themselves just like they would do for somebody else, and really to reinforce that they matter. And so, we do it through stories, we do it through education, and we do it with offering them opportunities to really to serve.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. And you had a great point there about women being was it being pre or postmenopausal and everything. It's like you still don't forget that you still have to take care of yourself. And I've seen it so often where some women just like, oh, I'm just going through menopause, and they just accept it. Mm-hmm. They accept it as a norm, and it's like, oh, they go with the flow of things, and it's just like, oh, well, it's over. So then it's like, hey, I don't have to deal with that anymore. But like you said, we still have those internal areas, the basement area that we still have to take care of. But the thing that you're bringing light to is the fact that these things can happen after that, And I feel like sometimes it's just the lack of knowledge as well. When people are just like, okay, well, they don't think anything can happen because it's already over. You went through your years and all this other stuff. But, just like sometimes in cases with breast cancer, some women that get it, they're over 60 years old or 7. I have an aunt who we didn't even know. I mean, she went through it, she survived. I mean, everything's fine with her, but she lived away and she didn't really tell anybody. But she had breast cancer, but she didn't experience it until like after, I think, 70. So it's just so many things that can take place. But like you said, you always have to keep your health first, no matter what, and just keep your visits, ask questions. And doctors too, they're not always upfront about everything.
Not at all. And the reality is, as you age, your risk factor increases for cancer, in particular gynecologic cancer. And we also find that in breast cancer as well, we have a lot of older women. Now you have the intersection of Black women may get it more. Hispanic women actually are diagnosed at a younger age. But Black women not only have the risk factors that they have a higher mortality, but they also are getting a more aggressive form of cancer, particularly in the gynecologic cancers. We have to realize that postmenopausal, what does that mean? A reduction in estrogen. And so that impacts all of, your gynecologic organs, your heart, cardiovascular system, even your sense of mental health. All of those things go hand in hand. And so it's not that you stop, it's you continue, because there are so many things that can happen, can go wrong, but they're also kind of falling and we're running into barriers because of policies. And what you said also, the providers not necessarily maybe not being comfortable with the shared decision-making and the communication that needs to happen. So empowering the women is one thing, giving them education is another. But once we get all of those together, then we'll roll over through the advocacy and go into those exam rooms together, and that's the biggest thing, is to let them know that they really are worthy of maintaining their health.
Yeah. And that's so important to know. That last part you just said, worthy of maintaining your health. No matter what age you are, you're worthy. And especially in those after, menopause years.
Seasoned.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Years.
In the seasoned years, it's even more important because it's still vitality, and everything, within you supports each other, and it's a flow. So when something is out of whack, you're going to feel it and, and just continue to do that. And I think also with some of the things that, let me ask this question. Would you say it is a lot to have to do with some of the new findings with some of the gynecology type of cancers or issues that doctors are finding more now? Because like when you talk about endometriosis, I heard the word all the time. I hear people talk about it all the time, but then it's like I never knew that it was a cancer. So
endometriosis is a condition that happens. The cancer is endometrial cancer or uterine cancer or womb cancer. And it is the fact that you may not hear about it. It's the least talked about gynecologic cancer. It is the least funded, but it is the only cancer that's actually growing. And it's growing by 2% each year. And it's disproportionately affecting Black women around the globe. So, of course, you're not going to hear about all of that because we're talking about women, the most disparate group around the world, particularly aging women. And so if, we're not recognizing them, they're used to silent voices, they're used to being muted. How are we then going to, make it plain and make awareness about something that exists and is killing folks. So that's what we're here for, not only to help with their health outcomes, but quality of life. That's super important. And so bringing together a community of sisterhood, especially for those who have found themselves without partners, without family in the home, that gives you also a reason, having that social network. And, we all are each, here for each other in a variety of seasons, in diverse seasons, it's the intergenerational knowledge that needs to happen and that community that needs to really take place. So it's an honor for me to sit at the feet of Nanas. That's where you learn. That's what you get your original sips tea from those porches. So it's a wonderful time being around all my seasoned folk. I love it.
That's wonderful. And you can learn so much and everything. That's so amazing. So I love that, and with the event, with the TEDx event and the theme being power of inclusion, how important is it for what you're doing to be highlighted and included in our society?
When we think of disparities, we tend to go into racial and ethnic disparities. We don't really think about ageism. And so when I'm talking about women's health, we're really talking the fact that we value those who are younger than those who are older. We really, the reason why I call it seasoned instead of old is because when you say old, you're thinking about everything that is negative. It's ready to be discarded. It's stale. It's no use, garbage. When you say seasoned, we're really putting a wonderful value on each age, on each year. And so what we are trying to say is, hey, we understand women, health matters and women matter. We understand every ethnicity, every gender experience also matters, but don't forget about seasoned women. And they are not just in the kitchen. If they are, that's where they want to be. God bless them. They're also in the boardroom. They're also running marathons. They are also writing policies. And they're also just waiting for young kids in their laps. It's the diversity of experiences of our seasoned women that need to be captured, that need to be celebrated. But let's not forget about them and let's not discard them.
Yes. So I love that. I just love that on so many levels because, I feel like not every woman, but I do think that some women, not just people around them think like that, but some women think like that to a point. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm already here. I've already been through it. Oh, it's like the acceptance of, they feel like they have to accept what our grandparents in the early years did or so forth. And we live in a different time where you don't have to accept it, And I would say this, like for myself, I just recently, I'm being seasoned. I'm in my seasoned years now, and I just turned 50. And so I feel like a lot of people think, oh, well, oh, you're getting old, or and I'm like, I don't even use that three-letter word in my life. Tell people how you speak about yourself and how you act, it really does come out in how you look. And you don't have to accept that. And I'm thankful to God's grace and everything that I don't look 50. I can still get away with it, but it does come with you taking care of yourself. And as I enter into those extra other years, I feel, I tell people like all the time, that is a cycle of life that you have to go through when you go through menopause and everything like that. However, I do believe you don't have to go through it the way people accept the way you have to go through it. When it comes from like the right nutrition, having the right supplements, doing the things, learning about what is it that causes the symptoms, how bad they are, how you can minimize it, all those things. And then when I see these ladies out here, 60, 70, 80 years old, with muscles and their bodies looking like a 30-year-old. I'm like, oh no, that is not our yesterday aunties and grandmothers and everything. Like, no, we can make that choice. And what I love what you're doing, you're telling people, you're telling women like, yes, you can make that choice. You can be a seasoned life in your seasoned years, but yet you can still be the vivacious, the beautiful, the, you know, everything that you once felt like you were, you still are, even to this day. And you don't have to accept the norm and say, oh, you just got to be all crumpled up and go back and just like thrown away. Like you said, old things just go back. That's it. No, it's a renewness.
It is a renewness, and most of our seasoned women are spicy. So that's, you know, we always ask what type of seasoning are you? And we always get spicy, less sweet. But I love this quote that I heard Dr. Ruth, remember her back in the day?
Yeah, yes.
She said, people stop thinking about retiring. We rewire. And so that means that you may have one season of your life where you're working. Now it's another time to, you know, do other things, but that takes exposure. That takes to, you know, opportunity, and that takes you to have that sense that you are worthy, you are valuable, and that you can do it. Remember, we're living longer now. There are a lot of centenarians, more centenarians than there have been in a while. And so I know that even with one of our gynecologists, she said she had an 84-year-old woman that was getting ready to get married and said, hey, came to her and said, hey, I want to enjoy the fullness of my marriage. So what do I need to do in order to do that? With some hormone replacement therapy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're looking at it in so many ways. And truth be told, we don't know what those couples have been living in 50, 60, 70 years, have all, you know, been doing into, you know, in their activity. It is us who kind of look at it and kind of deem and assign what they should and should not do. We have to be made more aware of their humanity. And the seasoned women have to be freed to know that they are free to be even better versions of themselves than when they were young. Young is great, but now with that extra seasoning, it's even better.
Oh my gosh, just like how food is. If food, when you season it right, just right,
and it marinates.
Oh, it's just
the marinating. That's it. It's the time in there.
Yes, yes, and we know that meal is going to be perfect. So same way with us, the women in their seasoned years or being seasoned and everything. I love it. Thank you, Vanessa, so much for even bringing this topic up and being here on this the podcast. But also, I'm thankful to have you on as a speaker for TEDxMellenStreet. Everybody, once again, is in Hampton, Virginia at the American Theater on November the 18th. And you're going to hear oh my gosh, I have to do a whole nother thing. I don't know. You might be going for your doctorate one day, but we're going to hear Vanessa Hill, you know, talk about her fabulous talk and the things that she's going to do with it amongst everyone else that's going to be on stage. And I would like to close out with words of wisdom, Vanessa, if you could give to everybody.
The word of wisdom is to take the time to really have grace with yourself, grace in every season of your life. Don't set an expectation based on someone else. God has made you unique and divine within yourself. Celebrate that. Celebrating it is living inside each day. Celebrating it is not thinking about what would have been, what could have been, or what was. Celebrating is saying all of that came before me was wonderful seasoning and spices to where I am right now. And how can I take that to nourish those who come after me or those days ahead of me? I just really believe we all are on mission. I believe that we all have to find it, even in those shadow places. But that when we accept it, as you say, accept the mission, accept our divine purpose, we will know that there is not an expiration date to our living, except when we transition and we're moving beyond the veil. Other than that, live each day abundantly and joyfully and with grace.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Everybody, this is Vanessa Hill, And she said, live it with grace, give yourself grace. And, you know, and that's so true. And thank you for those words of wisdom. And thank you, everybody, for watching this episode of TEDxMellenStreet Live. Once again, I want to thank our sponsor, Tanya Fields, the founder of Connected Compass, who is doing amazing things in the STEM community for minority men and women. And on that note, everyone, we'll be back with another episode and another wonderful speaker for the TEDxMellenStreet event. And I want everyone to have a wonderful day. Thank you again, Vanessa. Thank you again, everybody. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.